There will always be someone who tries to disturb your peace. Someone who misunderstands you. Someone who judges you. Someone who speaks about you when you are not there. Someone who wants a reaction from you, because your reaction gives them a sense of control. But the question is not whether people will disturb you. The question is, will you allow them to? Because the moment you realize that your mind is your responsibility, everything begins to change. You stop chasing explanations. You stop proving your worth. You stop responding to every comment, every opinion, every provocation. Not because you are weak, not because you have nothing to say, but because you finally understand that not everything deserves your energy. To be unbothered does not mean that you feel nothing. It means you feel something and still remain in control. You notice the anger, but you do not become the anger. You notice the criticism, but you do not carry it. You notice the disrespect, but you do not allow it to decide who you become. This is where real strength begins. Most people believe power is having the perfect response, but sometimes the greatest response is no response at all. Sometimes strength is walking away without needing the last word. Sometimes maturity is allowing someone to have their opinion without making it your problem. You do not need to win every argument. You do not need everyone to understand you. You do not need everyone to like you. And you certainly do not need to prove that you are worthy. Your attention is one of the most valuable things you possess. So ask yourself, who deserves access to it? If you give your attention to every person who tries to provoke you, you are handing pieces of your peace to people who have done nothing to earn them. So become selective. Pause before you react. Breathe before you answer. Observe before you judge. And when something does not deserve your energy, let it pass. The world will continue to test your patience. People will continue to misunderstand you. Situations will continue to happen that you cannot control. But you can train yourself to become the person who remains centered while everything around you moves. That is the real meaning of mastering your mind, not controlling the world. Controlling yourself. One of the greatest forms of inner strength is realizing that other people should not have control over your emotional state. Every day, people will say things you do not like, behave in ways you do not expect, misunderstand your intentions, judge your decisions, or attempt to provoke a reaction from you. You cannot control what they think, what they say, or how they behave. But you can control what you do with what they give you. Think about how easily your mood can change because of another person. Someone ignores you, and suddenly you feel rejected. Someone criticizes you, and you begin questioning yourself. Someone speaks disrespectfully, and you carry anger for hours. Someone does not appreciate what you did, and suddenly you feel that your effort was meaningless. The event may last only a few seconds, but you continue experiencing it inside your mind, long after the person has moved on. This is where you must become conscious. When you allow another person's behavior to determine your emotional state, you give them a position they should never have. You allow someone outside of you to enter your inner world and decide whether you will have peace today. You may not be able to control their words, but you are still responsible for the meaning you give those words. This does not mean becoming emotionless. It does not mean pretending that disrespect does not hurt or that criticism never affects you. You are human. You will feel anger, disappointment, sadness, and frustration. The goal is not to eliminate these emotions. The goal is to stop becoming controlled by them. There is a difference between feeling an emotion and obeying an emotion. You can feel anger without speaking from anger. You can feel disappointment without becoming bitter. You can feel disrespected without losing your dignity. You can hear criticism without immediately defending yourself. This small space between what happens and what you choose to do is where your freedom exists. The stronger your mind becomes, the more you understand that every reaction has a cost. When you react impulsively, you give your energy away. You may say something you later regret. You may create a conflict that never needed to exist. You may spend the entire day thinking about one sentence someone said to you. Ask yourself, is this person worth that much space in your mind? Often the answer is no. You do not need to respond to every provocation. You do not need to correct every misunderstanding. You do not need to defend yourself against every opinion. Sometimes people are committed to misunderstanding you, and no explanation will change their mind. Let them misunderstand you. Your peace does not require their agreement. When you stop needing everyone to approve of you, something powerful happens. You become less reactive. You become quieter. You begin making decisions based on your values instead of other people's expectations. You stop asking, what will they think? And start asking, is this right for me? That is the beginning of emotional independence. Imagine walking through life with the understanding that other people's opinions are simply information, not commands. Someone can dislike you and you can continue your path. Someone can criticize you and you can examine the criticism without allowing it to destroy your confidence. Someone can leave and you can continue growing. Someone can speak badly about you and you can remain focused on the person you are becoming. This is what it means to be unbothered. Being unbothered is not about becoming arrogant or careless. It is about becoming grounded. You know who you are, so you do not need every person to confirm it. You know what you stand for, so you do not change direction every time someone disagrees with you. Your attention is precious. Your emotional energy is limited. Your peace is something you must protect. So the next time someone tries to provoke you, pause. Do not immediately answer. Observe what is happening inside you. Notice the emotion. Take a breath. Ask yourself whether responding will improve the situation or simply feed the reaction. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is nothing. Not because you have been defeated, but because you have decided that your peace is more valuable than winning an unnecessary battle. You cannot control everyone around you. You cannot control their opinions, their behavior, or their intentions. But you can train your mind to remain steady. And when your inner state no longer depends on the approval, attention, or behavior of other people, you become difficult to disturb. You become free because your peace finally belongs to you. There is a moment that exists between what happens to you and what you choose to do about it. Most people never learn to use this moment. Something happens, an emotion rises, and immediately they react. Someone says something offensive, and they answer. Someone criticizes them, and they defend themselves. Someone ignores them, and they become angry. Someone provokes them, and they respond without thinking. In that instant, the other person is no longer simply influencing the situation. They are influencing the person's behavior. The pause changes everything. A pause is not weakness, it is control. It is the ability to step back from the first emotional impulse and observe yourself before allowing that impulse to become your action. When you pause, you create distance between the event and your response. That distance gives your mind enough space to choose instead of simply react. Imagine someone speaks to you disrespectfully. Your first instinct may be to answer with the same energy. You may feel that if you remain silent, you have lost. But what if silence is not losing? What if silence is the moment you refuse to surrender control? You do not have to match every person's energy. You do not have to answer anger with anger. You do not have to turn every disagreement into a battle. Sometimes the strongest person in the room is the one who can remain calm, while everyone else is becoming emotional. This does not mean you should tolerate everything. There are moments when you need to speak, establish boundaries, or walk away from a situation. But even then, there is power in choosing your response consciously rather than allowing emotion to choose it for you. When you pause, ask yourself 3 simple questions. What am I feeling? Why am I feeling it? And what response will serve me best? These questions can interrupt an emotional reaction before it controls your behavior. Perhaps you are angry because someone challenged your pride. Perhaps you are frustrated because you expected appreciation. Perhaps you are hurt because someone's words touched an insecurity. When you understand the emotion beneath your reaction, you become less controlled by it. You begin to see that sometimes the real battle is not with the person in front of you. The real battle is with the impulse inside you that demands an immediate response. Train yourself to wait. Take 1 breath before answering. Take a few seconds before sending the message. Walk away if necessary. Rest a turn. When your mind is clear, you will be surprised how many things feel important in the moment but meaningless after you have calmed down. A reaction lasts seconds, but its consequences can last much longer. 1 angry sentence can damage a relationship. 1 impulsive message can create unnecessary conflict. 1 emotional decision can create a problem that could have been avoided simply by waiting. The pause protects you from your own temporary emotions. And this is a form of discipline. People often think discipline means forcing yourself to work harder, wake up earlier, or accomplish more. But discipline also means having control over your tongue when you are angry, control over your actions when you are frustrated, and control over your attention when someone is trying to distract you. The calmer you become, the more clearly you see. You begin noticing that not every comment deserves an answer. Not every accusation deserves a defense. Not every misunderstanding needs to be corrected. Not every person deserves access to your emotional energy. The pause allows you to decide what matters. When you practice this consistently, people may notice a change in you. They may try to provoke you and discover that you no longer react the way you used to. They may expect an argument and receive calmness. They may expect you to explain yourself and instead see you remain silent. This is not about appearing powerful. It is about becoming powerful within yourself. Your goal is not to control other people. Your goal is to stop allowing other people to control you. The next time you feel that immediate urge to respond, do not rush. Let the emotion rise and fall without immediately acting upon it. Remember that you always have a choice. You can answer later. You can speak calmly. You can walk away. Or you can decide that no response is necessary. The moment you master the pause, you begin mastering yourself. Because true strength is not measured by how quickly you react, but by how consciously you choose your response. One of the hardest things to accept in life is that not everyone will understand you, and not everyone needs to. You can explain your intentions clearly, speak honestly, show your heart, and still be misunderstood. You can do everything with good intentions and still have someone create a completely different story about you. If you spend your life trying to correct every misunderstanding, you will eventually become exhausted because you are trying to control something that does not belong to you. The need to be understood can quietly become a form of dependence. You begin watching people's reactions. You start explaining why you made a certain decision. You defend your character when someone questions it. You try to convince people that your intentions were good. You rewrite your words in your mind, wondering what you should have said differently. Slowly, your attention moves away from your own path and becomes trapped inside the opinions of others. But ask yourself something. How much of your life should be spent proving yourself to people who have already decided what they want to believe? There will always be people who misunderstand your silence. They may think you are arrogant when you are simply protecting your peace. They may think you are weak when you choose not to argue. They may think you have changed when you finally begin setting boundaries. They may call you selfish when you stop sacrificing your peace to make everyone comfortable. Let them have their interpretation. You do not need to correct every person. There is a quiet freedom that comes when you stop needing everyone to understand your choices. You begin to realize that your life is not a public debate. You do not have to present evidence for every decision you make. You do not need permission to grow, change, walk away, become quieter, or choose a different direction. Of course, there are moments when communication matters. If someone important to you genuinely wants to understand, then speak honestly. If you have made a mistake, take responsibility. If clarification can repair something meaningful, then communicate. Detachment does not mean refusing to communicate. It means refusing to become emotionally dependent on whether someone accepts your explanation. There is a difference between explaining yourself and proving yourself. When you explain yourself with clarity, you communicate your truth and allow the other person to decide what they believe. When you feel that you must prove yourself, you keep talking long after your truth has already been expressed. This is where many people lose their peace. They explain once, then again, and still the other person does not accept it. At some point, you must recognize that more words will not create understanding where there is no willingness to understand. Your character is not determined by someone's opinion of you. If someone thinks badly of you, that does not automatically make you a bad person. If someone does not recognize your effort, that does not make your effort meaningless. If someone misunderstands your intentions, that does not erase the truth of your intentions. You know the work you have done inside yourself. You know the battles you have fought. You know the reasons behind the choices you have made. And sometimes that knowledge must be enough. When you detach from the need to be understood, you become more comfortable with silence. You stop feeling pressure to respond immediately. You stop checking whether everyone approves of you. You stop changing yourself simply to avoid someone's judgment. This does not make you careless about people. It makes you more balanced. You can respect someone's opinion without accepting it as your identity. You can listen to criticism without allowing it to define you. You can accept that someone dislikes you without turning that dislike into a personal crisis. This is emotional maturity. You cannot control how people interpret you. You can only control how honestly you live. So live in a way that allows your actions to speak louder than your explanations. Let consistency reveal what words cannot. Let time reveal your character. Let your behavior become the evidence. And when someone chooses to misunderstand you despite everything, do not chase them with explanations. Keep walking. There is no need to carry the weight of every opinion you encounter. Some people will understand you, some will misunderstand you, and some will never even try. Your responsibility is not to convince all of them. Your responsibility is to remain true to yourself while continuing to grow. Be Because when you stop needing everyone to understand you, you stop living for their approval, and when you stop living for their approval, you finally create enough inner space to live according to your own values, your own discipline, and your own peace. A grounded mind is not a mind that never experiences fear, anger, disappointment, or uncertainty. It is a mind that can experience all of these things without being completely carried away by them. Life will always move around you. People will change. Plans will fail. Expectations will be broken. Some days will be peaceful, while other days will challenge everything you thought you understood. The goal is not to create a life where nothing disturbs you. The goal is to develop an inner foundation strong enough that external circumstances cannot easily shake you. Many people build their emotional state around what happens outside of them. When things go well, they feel confident. When someone praises them, they feel valuable. When someone criticizes them, they feel worthless. When they succeed, they feel powerful. When they fail, they question themselves. Their inner state constantly rises and falls according to the world around them. But if your peace depends entirely on circumstances, you will never truly feel stable. A grounded mind begins with knowing who you are. You must understand your values, your principles, and the direction you want your life to move toward. When you know what matters to you, every outside opinion becomes less powerful. You can listen without being controlled. You can observe without immediately reacting. You can accept advice without abandoning your own judgment. This is why self-awareness is so important. Before you can master your mind, you must learn to observe it. Notice what triggers you. Notice what makes you insecure. Notice when you become defensive. Notice when you start seeking approval. Notice when another person's behavior changes your mood. Do not judge yourself immediately. Simply observe. Awareness creates space. When you become aware of your thoughts, you stop automatically believing every thought that enters your mind. A difficult situation may create the thought, "I cannot handle this," but a grounded mind can recognize that this is only a thought, not a final truth. You can acknowledge the fear and still continue. Grounded people do not need everything to be perfect before they feel okay. They learn to remain steady while things are unfinished. They understand that uncertainty is part of life. They understand that rejection is part of life. They understand that failure is part of growth. They understand that not everyone will appreciate them. And they do not allow these experiences to completely redefine them. One of the strongest ways to build this stability is to stop constantly seeking external validation. If you need someone else to tell you that you are doing well before you believe it, your confidence remains in their hands. But when you learn to recognize your own effort, your own progress, and your own discipline, you become less dependent on applause. You begin to respect yourself privately. That is important because the strongest form of confidence does not always announce itself. It is quiet. It does not need to prove itself. It does not need to enter every argument. It does not need to be noticed. It simply knows where it stands. A grounded mind also understands the difference between what you can control and what you cannot. You can control your actions, your attention, your words, your habits, and the meaning you give to experiences. You cannot control another person's opinion, the past, unexpected events, or every outcome. So stop spending your energy fighting what cannot be controlled. Bring your attention back to yourself. What can you do now? What is within your responsibility? What is the next right action? These questions bring you back to the present moment. When your mind is constantly living in the past or worrying about the future, You lose contact with the only moment where you actually have power. Now, practice returning. Return to your breath. Return to your priorities. Return to your values. Return to the work in front of you. Every time you return, you strengthen your mind. Eventually, you begin to notice that situations which once controlled you no longer have the same power. Criticism becomes information instead of an attack. Delays become opportunities to practice patience. Difficult people become opportunities to practice emotional control. Failure becomes a lesson instead of an identity. This is what it means to become grounded. You are not trying to become someone who never feels disturbed. You are becoming someone who knows how to return to center. The world can be loud, but your mind does not have to become loud with it. People can be emotional, but you do not have to surrender your emotional balance. Circumstances can change, but your principles can remain steady. And when you build that kind of inner foundation, you no longer need to control everything around you to feel safe, because you have learned to trust yourself enough to remain steady even when life refuses to follow your plan. Silence is often misunderstood. Many people think that if you do not respond, you are weak. They believe you must defend yourself, prove your point, or have the final word to show that you are strong. But real strength does not always make noise. Sometimes the strongest person is the one who knows when to speak and when to remain silent. Silence becomes powerful when it comes from self-control rather than fear. There will be moments when someone tries to provoke you simply to get a reaction. They may criticize you, challenge your character, mock your decisions, or deliberately say something they know will irritate you. Your first instinct may be to answer immediately. You may feel that remaining silent means allowing them to win, but ask yourself, what are you actually winning by reacting? If someone succeeds in controlling your emotions, then your reaction has already given them what they wanted. They pressed a button and you responded exactly as expected. But when you pause, observe, and decide that their words do not deserve your energy, you take that control back. This is why silence can be a form of discipline. You are not silent because you have nothing to say. You are silent because you understand that not everything needs to be said. There are conversations that create understanding, and there are conversations that only create more conflict. There are people who genuinely want to communicate, and there are people who simply want to provoke. Wisdom is knowing the difference. Sometimes you can explain yourself once and leave it there. Sometimes you can state your boundary without arguing. Sometimes you can walk away without announcing your departure. Sometimes you can hear an insult and simply continue with your day. This does not mean you should accept disrespect or allow people to harm you. Silence should never mean abandoning your boundaries. You can be firm without being aggressive. You can say no without creating a war. You can distance yourself without hatred. The goal is not to become silent in every situation. The goal is to become intentional. Before you speak, ask yourself whether your words will improve the situation. Will they create clarity? Will they solve something? Will they protect something important? Or are you simply speaking because your ego cannot tolerate being challenged? That question can change everything. Many arguments continue because two people are not trying to understand each other anymore. They are trying to win. Each person waits for the other to stop speaking so they can respond. The conversation becomes a competition and peace becomes impossible. You do not have to participate in every competition you are invited into. There is freedom in realizing that you can leave certain conversations unfinished. Not every misunderstanding requires correction. Not every accusation requires defense. Not every opinion requires your attention. Your silence can communicate that you are not available for unnecessary conflict. But there is another kind of silence that is even more important. The silence within your own mind. If your mind is constantly reacting to what people say, imagining what they think, replaying old conversations, and creating arguments that have not even happened, then physical silence will not give you peace. You must learn to quiet the internal noise as well. Stop replaying the same insult. Stop creating imaginary responses. Stop wondering how you could have proved yourself better. The moment has passed. Let it pass. Your energy belongs to the present. This is where silence becomes a form of inner freedom. You stop carrying conversations long after they have ended. You stop allowing another person's words to occupy your mind for the entire day. You acknowledge what happened, learn what you can learn, and then return your attention to your own path. People may continue talking, let them. People may continue judging, let them. People may misunderstand your silence, let them. You do not need to control every interpretation of your behavior. Your responsibility is to remain aligned with your values. When you become comfortable with silence, you also become more comfortable with yourself. You no longer need constant conversation, validation, or approval to feel secure. You can sit with your thoughts. You can observe your emotions. You can choose your actions carefully. And eventually, people begin to recognize something different about you. You are not easily provoked. You do not rush. You do not explain everything. You do not chase every disagreement. You protect your peace. That is not coldness. That is maturity. The strongest silence is not the silence that punishes others. It is the silence that protects your own mind. It is the ability to step away from unnecessary noise and return to what actually matters. So let your silence become intentional. Let it protect your energy. Let it create space between emotion and action. Let it remind you that you do not have to prove your strength through constant reaction. Because when you no longer feel the need to answer every voice around you, you finally become able to hear the most important voice of all, the calm, disciplined voice within yourself.